about how you make digital transformation actionable. Here's a quote to start with. This is a man you're probably familiar with, Charles Darwin. He made a wise quote. He said, "It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." He was a wise man, Charles. And I wonder, perhaps, was he the world's first digital transformation consultant? Perhaps he was. And it is this point, actually, that this entire presentation is about. How do we make organizations responsive to change? Now, there are great opportunities in digital transformation, and embracing the change in technologies in consumers is obviously opening up completely new business models. Everyone's hearing about this stuff. Here's one example. There are many more. Airbnb, probably one of the largest accommodation providers in the world, owns no property. Alibaba, who's heard of Alibaba? About half of the audience. Now becoming one of the world's largest retailers, owns no stock. So these are new business models which have emerged because of the opportunities of companies embracing new technology and social trends. So great opportunities there. And the opportunity to disrupt markets and make huge businesses, just like Alibaba have done and just like Airbnb have done, it comes when we keep up with consumers and technology. Of course, there's a risk to falling behind, but the opportunity is when we keep up, and that's when we have great new businesses emerging. Of course, this doesn't always happen in the real world. Here's a chart from 2011. This is now 6 years ago. This is a chart from a well-renowned trends watcher called Mary Meeker. And it shows, up here, you can see in green, ad spend per media. In blue, you see actual time spent per media. And there's an obvious sort of gap here, which is when you look at mobile. Back in 2011, consumers were spending a lot of time on mobile. This was already 4 years after the iPhone was launched. But if you look at how media was being spent in 2011, it wasn't catching up. The world knew about this. The world was all talking about it. Companies knew they had to act on it. It was the big thing. Since then, it's been the year of mobile almost every year. And yet, turn the clock 5 years forward, here are some stats. These are stats from a survey called the Talent Revolution. And it's a survey which we built together with BCG to help any organization to health check their digital capabilities. It covers 75 different best practices. Some of those best practices are on mobile. 5 years later, after that stat, 27% of people, these are senior marketeers in large organizations, they said 27% agreed they still did not have, only 27%, I should say, have a mobile strategy based on understanding consumers' use of mobile. 5 years later. Only 17% agreed that they were able to attribute the value of mobile 5 years later. Why is it still a challenge? Why does this keep happening? And what prevents us from actually keeping up with consumers, keeping up with technology, despite the fact that we all say that we must do it, and yet we don't? So what's going on? Fact is, it's quite hard. And it's quite hard because transformation is not just about having a cool idea. It's not like my fairy example. You can have a cool idea. That doesn't mean it will become embedded in any organization. What's required is a lot of different things in parallel. And this is what I'm going to talk about in the rest of this presentation. How can companies become more customer-centric? How can they use the best of tech and data and automation, change their people operations, change their culture and innovation, and have the leadership that brings it too? Because unless you nail all 5 of these themes and keep it all moving, if any one of them falls down, then organizations tend to snap back into their old traditional behaviors. And that's the thing that's hard. It's not having the cool idea. It's keeping all of this, all of these different plates spinning. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Customer centricity is number one theme for driving digital transformation. We often find that the connection between a company and their customers is often the starting point for transformation, because customers are moving faster than companies are. They're using technology differently, and so often transformation of an entire business or their model starts in the marketing department. Here's a quote. A digital-first CEO knows what tagging is. I'm going to do another quick hands-up exercise. Hands up if you know what tagging is. We've got about a third of the audience. Okay. We believe that if a company is to be customer-centric, even the people at the top of the organization need to understand some important pieces of technology. I raise this one not because it's the answer to customer centricity, because it's an example, it's an illustration of what is going on that prevents companies from doing it right. Tagging is simple. It's a little piece of code that you can insert into a website, into an ad, into pretty much any digital touch point that you have. And if all of those tags are created in the right way and fed through to the right central database, then a company can actually track their interaction with every customer, wherever they are. So tagging is actually critical. However, those tags, it's just a little piece of code, those tags need to sit in digital touchpoints, which are probably run by many different departments in the company. And so they all need to know about it. And actually the CEO needs to mandate that. And if that little piece of technology, if that little piece of code is not managed correctly throughout the entire organization, that company will never be customer-centric. Now, a lot of CEOs probably don't realize that, but it's just one example of where the very top of an organization needs to understand what's going on at the very bottom and at the execution. And it's that connection between the management and the practitioners. And you see this example here where it can make a difference. Because what happens when we don't do that is that we allow organizations to become accessible or visible, you might say, to the customer. Many of you may have had an experience with a company yourself in your normal lives where, excuse me, where perhaps you've bought something on an online sales channel or an offline sales channel, and those two channels don't seem to be talking to each other. One person didn't know what you did in the other channel. Or what about when you ring the customer service line of the company? Or when you speak to the product development people? Or what does the ad tell you from the brand management team? Do all of these things appear to line up? Do they seem to know you as a customer? Quite often they don't, and they don't line up, and you probably don't feel like you are being treated as a unique customer where the company knows who you are, because all of those connections have not been made. So customer centricity is all about, guess what, the customer. And the customer is king. Certainly my days back in Procter & Gamble, we always used to talk about customer as boss. It's much more easily said than done, but that connection between the top of the organization and the practitioners who are actually doing the digital work is absolutely critical to prevent this org chart being visible to the customer. And in the end, if we can create one consistent customer experience across all touch points, that's kind of what we're trying to do. And that's really an organizational challenge. So that's just a couple of thoughts on customer centricity. There's lots more I could say, but I have 4 more themes, so I shall move on. Theme 2, mastering tech, data, and automation. There's lots being talked about in this. Obviously in the marketing space, this has been a topic for a number of years, and many of you will have been hearing a lot of discussion recently about the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning. I shall speak about that in a second. Now, I'm going to characterize some people, because although this little section is about technology, actually it's also about people. In most organizations, both agencies, clients, etc., there are some folk, some of them look like this. They don't all wear funny t-shirts and Star Wars t-shirts and funny glasses. Some of them do. But you know who they are. They're your geeks, they're your trend washers. They're the people who understand the technologies. They're really important because no one individual can possibly know about all the new technologies and all the tools and all the data, but these guys know some of it. But they're in deep, and they know what they know. The challenge, however, is that there's a bit of a language problem sometimes. So I have been in many meetings where I've sat there and the technology guru has walked in and has been asked to present about the latest new piece of tech. Programmatic, for instance, and ad buying technology is a really good example of that. Even at Google, we have people who know a reasonable amount of stuff, and then we have some Uber experts who walk in, and they'll give you a 45-minute presentation about the ins and outs of the latest piece of technology, and we all nod our heads, and then they walk out of the room, and we'll go, I'm not sure I understood what they said. And it's true. And this is a real problem. There is so much that gets lost in translation. And you know, I talked about the top of the organization and the practitioners. And when we have that translation, that language problem between them, then huge opportunities are missed. So it's really important to nurture these guys, but it's really important to also have the translation service for them as well, because they're sitting on a crucial skill. Here's an example to illustrate. In marketing, I'm going to characterize here now. In marketing, there is a world of people who work in this space. Yeah? And over the years, what emerged was this discipline called online marketing, and there were some online marketing specialists. And the marketing people, the serious marketing people, the CMOs, they were excited to have these online marketing specialists in their team, and they were quite happy that they just got on with what they did. And then within the world of online marketing came the programmatic specialists, the people who know all about ad buying and all about the new technologies that automate the buying of banner ads. And the online marketing people were quite happy to have these specialist people inside their team. And ultimately, there was a language barrier between the programmatic people and the online people, and between the online people and the marketing people. No one really knew at the top of the marketing layer what was going on inside the programmatic box. Didn't need to know, didn't think they needed to know. It's a shame, really, because they did, and they do, and everything's changing because of it. In theory, it should look a bit more like this. These technologies, which sit inside the programmatic box, are actually transforming not just media, not just banner ads, but actually online marketing as a whole. And in fact, the principles apply to marketing as a whole. And whether you think about it as tech, data, automation, or frankly, just reaching your customer more efficiently, that's what that technology is doing. So these folk who are actually doing programmatic marketing, programmatic media, need to be renamed, really. These people are actually doing what we think about as programmable marketing. It's something which changes the whole discipline. But it's only because of this translation gap that is not fully being recognized. And there's a huge opportunity being missed. And a huge opportunity for companies that get it to streak ahead and actually to interact with their customers far more effectively than they've ever done before. So don't silo tech as a specialism. That's a general point about people and organizations. Now, I just want to, while we're on technology, I want to give you an example of a piece of technology which is hot right now, and people perhaps don't always know what to do with it. So everyone's talking about artificial intelligence. Who, in the last 6 months, has read an article about artificial intelligence or machine learning? Most people. Excellent. And our CEO, Sundar, has said we're going to move from a mobile-first world to an AI-first world. Google has been quoted quite publicly as saying, well, we're going to see huge opportunities to dramatically improve how people work, artificial intelligence is going to change things. And many of us in the marketing industry and in business in general are all going, ooh, this is really exciting. What's going to happen? Artificial intelligence. But to actually take any action on this, it's important to understand what this is, what you can do with it, and kind of jump over that, that language barrier that we talked before. Because once you get past the headlines, suddenly you enter this world of tech, which few people really understand. So I'm going to try and attempt to leap over that language barrier for you today with a game, if I may. We're going to play a game. And it's a drawing game. Now, I'd love to see how we feel about drawing. Could I ask you to do a little poll for me? Could you all raise your hands up like this? Yeah, that's everybody in the audience. Excellent. Right, your hand is now the needle of a dial. Okay, you're pointing at the number 5. Make sense? Okay. Now I want you to move your hand to your left, my right. That's right. Very good. You're doing well. Excellent. You're now pointing at a 0. Let's go back to a 5. And then let's go to 10. Okay. Now put your hands down for a second. Now I'd now like you to rate your drawing ability for me. Okay? If you're just like most rubbish drawer in the world, you're a 0. If you think you're pretty good, you're a 10. Give me a rating for you personally. How good a drawer are you at drawing? Okay. We've got some. Very good. All right. Put your hand. No, keep your hand where it is for a second. Put your hand down if you are above a 1. If you're above a 1, put your hand down. If you're a 1 or a 0, keep your hand there. Okay, right. Very good. Just a few people left. Now, for those of you who are still standing or still got your hand here, I would like to ask for a volunteer who would like to join me to do a little drawing exercise just to see whether machine learning can tell what you're drawing. Would anybody like to volunteer? If not, I shall pick on someone. Okay, I'm gonna. This man with the glasses. Thank you. We'll give him a round of applause. Come on up. We're going to play a drawing game. It's a machine learning drawing game, which we are going to use. There's some stairs just around there. Come on round. Excellent. Thank you very much. What's your name?
Emanuele.
Emanuele, thank you very much for joining us. And if you'd like to take the stage. So in a second, we're going to play a drawing game using machine learning. And I'm just going to drop out the presentation. And we're going to go to Chrome. There we go. And here we have. This game is called Google Quick Draw. What's going to happen, Emanuele, is when we hit Let's Draw, the machine is going to ask you to try to draw something using a mouse. And we're going to see if you can draw what it's asking you to do. And we're going to see if the machine can recognize what you're drawing. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about what did we learn about machine learning and what it really is. Make sense? Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. Are you ready? So you're going to just moving my just use it. Yeah. You're just going to use the mouse. You're used to using a Mac? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Excellent. So we're going to hit Let's Draw, and then we're going to start drawing things. It's going to ask you to do things. Okay. Hit Let's Draw. Draw an eraser in under 20 seconds. Click. Got it? And start drawing.
I see nose, or spoon, or shoe, or peanut, or potato. I see bandage.
Keep going. Yeah. You got 8 seconds left to amend your eraser drawing.
I'm not sure what that is.
Never mind. Let's try again. You've got 5 more to go.
Sorry, I couldn't guess it.
Crocodile. Just try crocodile. Go. Emmanuel, you can do this.
I see canoe, or pliers, or anvil, or diving board, or knife. I see arrow, or ocean, or garden hose, or shoe. I see string bean, or river. Oh, I know, it's crocodile.
Yes, crocodile, well done. Bicycle. Okay, bicycle. Can you draw a bicycle?
I see circle. I see potato, or computer mouse, or bread, or mustache. I see eyeglasses, or cherry, or sunglasses, or dumbbell. I see planet, or shoe, or yoga, or satellite, or crab. I see motorbike.
Oh, close. Motorbike. Come on.
Sorry, I couldn't guess it.
Motorbike, not bad. Stethoscope, what the doctor wears. Yeah?
I see circle, or potato, or hula hoop, or cherry. I see music note, or shovel, or unicycle, or key.
Oh, I quite like
I'm
that.
not sure what that is.
Pretty good. I would have guessed
I'm
stethoscope.
stumped. Sorry, I couldn't guess it.
Computer. Computer, you can do computer. Yeah, computer.
I see triangle, or hexagon, or pillow, or laptop.
Oh, come on, laptop.
I'm stumped.
Oh, you draw a laptop. That's
I'm
fair
stumped.
enough. I think that's fair enough. We give that to him, yeah? We give that to
I
him.
see marker, or pyramid.
enough, I
Sorry,
think so.
I couldn't guess it.
Last one, I think. Bridge. You can do a bridge. Come on.
I see line. I see hat, or keyboard, or pyramid. Oh, I know, it's bridge.
Yes! Well done. Manuel, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Round of applause for Manuel. Well done. So why have we played the drawing game? We played the drawing game because it's just a really nice, accessible way to understand what machine learning is actually doing. This is an artificial intelligence experiment from Google. And the computer, the algorithms behind here, they do not know what a bridge is. They do not know what a computer is. They have no rules which explains to them in advance what to look for. Okay, that's never been done. What they do have, however, is, for instance, if I was to click on crocodile, this is how people draw crocodiles. When there are thousands of people who've been into this game, and if we look at how people like to draw crocodiles, so I will just show you what happens. This is how people draw crocodiles, okay? So many different versions of a crocodile, but over thousands and thousands of drawings. That one's really good at the bottom, I like that one. But over many thousands of drawings, the machine has learnt what the lines look like when people are asked to draw something called a crocodile, and that's all it knows. And so it has learnt from thousands and thousands of drawings. The same goes for the other ones. So let's have a quick look at see, I think that was a good bicycle. Don't you think that was a good bicycle? Yes, exactly. Round of applause for Manuel's bicycle. And there you go. Lots of bicycles. That's you know that's a bicycle. So let me go back to the presentation. Where are we in? Come back to me. Hello. Here we go. So, where's my presentation thing on? There we go. So, yeah, machine learning, hopefully that gives you a very simple understanding of what machines are doing when they learn. It's the same thing that happens when, you probably heard about the AlphaGo example, where our DeepMind team competed with the best AlphaGo players in the world and managed to win, but it's all through this idea of just taking lots and lots of data and learning from it. So that's the basics of what it is. The next question is, if you understand what it is, how do you go about using that? And can it be used for businesses in interesting new ways? And what's fascinating is that, yes, it can, and you don't have to be a huge business with massive resources to be able to use this. And here's an example. This is a Japanese cucumber farmer. And it is, apparently in Japan, it is desirable for these particular types of spiny cucumbers that you see at the top it's desirable for them to be as straight as possible and shiny and thick and spiny. And in fact, there is a whole classification that's used for these cucumbers. This man's wife, on the right-hand side, during harvest season, spends typically 8 hours a day sorting through cucumbers into 9 different categories according to quality. It's quite a difficult thing to do, and there's not really an easy standard for cucumber classification or quality. So it's a very specialist thing. Only very few people can do that sorting. The man standing at the back is the couple's son. He's due to take over the cucumber business. Until now, he happens to have been a systems designer in the Japanese automotive industry. And he was challenged with taking over this business and continuing with the spiny cucumber sorting. And he was looking at this going, I do not want to spend 8 hours a day looking at cucumbers. Isn't there a way in which we can sort these out? So what he did is he used our open source machine learning algorithms. So it's a system called TensorFlow. Google it if you would like to learn more. But TensorFlow basically opens up all of the deep mathematical machine learning that allows us to do things like quick draw. But frankly, that same technology can be used to recognize cucumbers. So what he did is he built his own AI-based cucumber sorter. By the way, he did this with his own home PC. And it didn't cost him a lot of money. He used the TensorFlow algorithms. He didn't have to invent it all himself. He took about 7,000 photos of cucumbers, and then he asked his mum to make sure that they had been classified already as to whether they were category 1, 2, 3, up to 9. Using those 7,000 photos, he fed all those photos into his machine learning algorithm using TensorFlow behind the scenes, and it basically created a machine learning version of what his mum used to do. And so now, using his AI-based cucumber sorter that you can see on the right-hand side over here, he no longer has to sort the cucumbers himself. Now, if a 3-person family can do this for their cucumbers, you would hope that a large organization can do this with the huge amounts of data that they sit on as well. And there's plenty of opportunity to make this very accessible and very useful for all organizations, small and large. In fact, Google even has a whole range of pre-trained models. So there are some things which lots of folk want to be able to do and data to learn from. Language, so we have Cloud Translate. Vision, being able to tell what things are. Videos, speech. So there's a whole range of kind of pre-trained models that even app builders can use today. And these are models which have been built on top of the raw TensorFlow algorithms. So, coming back to the original point, remember I was talking about the geeks, the people who really know their technology, and the leaders who need to know how to use that technology. This is a great example of where that can come together. Last couple of themes. So we talked about tech. But it's all very well having great tech, isn't it? But then you need people who can use it. You need people who know what to do with it. You need people that can make the most of it. Finding the right people and making the right decisions about people is hard. And I just thought I'd give you one example of where Google tries to be more data-driven with how we manage people. At Google, all people decisions tend to be supported by science and data. So, we are a data-driven organization, and we believe that we can use data in all areas, even when it comes to people. So, one quick example, and there are many like this, whether it is finding out why people stay with a company or leave the company, and this is a really good example. How many interviews do you need to do to predict a good hire? That's a question that we've asked. Google historically has been known for asking lots and lots of really crazy questions in our interviews. But actually, when you do the correlation of the interview questions that people have been asked, that have all been coded, and then you correlate that with the actual results of people's performance after they've joined the company, and you look at their performance in the first year or 2 or 3, and say, well, what kind of interview resulted in what kind of hire? And how many interviews did we actually need to do? Is one interview enough? Probably not. You can still get some variability. Is 10 too much? Probably yes, because by the time you get to a certain number of interviews, you're not really getting much further data to base your decision on. So, as it happens, we actually did a data-driven exercise and figured out that the optimal number of interviews is 4. So that's just one simple example of how data can be applied to people operations. And using that data in this way would recommend it to any organization. Most organizations have data that they're sitting on, and it's a great example of how we can turn up the quality of our people to make sure that we do the best for our business. If you want to know more about the people side of things from Google, visit reworkwithgoogle.com, and that will give you a few good examples from this book by Laszlo Block, our previous global head of people operations, answering some of the types of questions that you can see here. So that's a top tip on people. In a culture of innovation. So what does that mean? So this is a great visualization. Driving change in organizations, digital transformation, is not a program or a project. It's more like a chain reaction of experiments. So a culture of innovation is not about having a specific process set in place. It's more about finding your way. It's more about doing something small that leads to something bigger, that leads to something bigger, that drives massive change in the end. And time again, that is the process that we see going on in large organizations. The challenge is that when transformation starts, lots of businesses often start off by saying, right, I need the business case for this. And when you ask them, well, what do you mean by the business case? They'll say, oh, we have to achieve a certain ROI. The challenge with ROI, the challenge with business cases, particularly with transformation, is that it often sets the direction in a way that's not going to work very well. Short-term ROI is easy to measure, but transformation is typically a long-term thing. So the first point is, if you go after a short-term goal, a measurable goal, an ROI-based goal, you'll probably never achieve the long-term transformation that you're after. Second point is, transformation is usually about doing something entirely new, something you've not done before. And you can't predict the ROI of that anyway, so what benchmarks do you even set? And the third point is, sometimes the ROI of something can't be calculated unless it's really big. But the point is that you have to start typically with something small. Mobile being a great example. If companies had tested the ROI of their first forays into mobile, it would almost universally have been negative. It would not have looked good. But over time, we've realized exactly how to do it right. So if we make business cases and ROI our destination, the chances are you'll end up doing something short-term that's incremental and doesn't make much difference. So that's a bit of a culture change if we want to drive innovation. And then, sorry, the words on this have gone a bit funny, but there's lots of stuff that surrounds that. So if we could to create an environment where that's okay, where it's okay to drive innovation and take leaps of faith, to do that requires a whole range of things. I'm not going to go into detail, but there's people. Do we have good people that can learn a lot of things? There's the culture, a structure that's loose, a workplace that's fun and easy for people to connect with, and a reward system as well. Do we reward innovation? Do we reward people for trying new things? So whether it's people or culture, structure, workplace, or reward, all of these things need working on. And the final words to make all of this happen, the leadership. So for leaders, it requires some bravery because there will always be barriers along the way. And that's just an inherent part. It's just a reality that the minute you want to change your organization, it's important to jump over those barriers. And the fact is, digital transformation is more work and it's more risk. And leaders have to be okay with that, and leaders have to embrace that and commit to that and help their people to work through that. It's more work because you've never done it before, the processes don't exist, therefore it will be harder than what you've done before. It's more risk because it's never been proven, so by definition, it might not work, and that means more risk. So there's lots of leaders talk about digital transformation, and that's like the mandate from the top of the organization, and lots of people talk about it. But the fact is, sacrifices have to be made. and organizations and their people have to be okay with more work and more risk. Hopefully this is evident from the points I'll be making along the way. Leaders need to target the long term, break silos in their organization, reward that test and learn. So just to finish off, as I'm out of time, back to these 5 points. I've talked about 5 things today: customer centricity, use of technology, people operations, culture, and vision. All of these things, as I say, need to work in concert. They all need to work together in lockstep. And the minute that one of them falls down, then innovation won't happen and transformation won't happen. So if a CMO wants to make this happen, it's about embracing all 5, and then it might be possible for Darwin's theory to come true. And we believe that if we embrace all 5, then rather than an organization getting stuck in its own history and not doing the new thing that they tried last year, like my fairy interactive TV example, but rather they'll give themselves the opportunity to rewrite history and forge a new future for their organizations. So I hope that's food for thought. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the game, and have a good rest of IF.